Welcome to the Soul Mirror. I'm your host, Shreya. Today we are joined by someone whose work rises directly from lived truth rather than distant theory. Kristen Crabtree is an author and certified divorce coach who rebuilt her identity from the ground up, transforming her own dissolution into a mission and now empowers countless others. Her journey through self recovery, authenticity, and profound reinvention forms the heart of her new book. And today we explore the spark that ignited it all. This conversation promises to be raw, clarifying, and incredibly human. An invitation to remember who we really are beneath the roles we have long outgrown. Welcome, Kristen. I'm honored to have you on my show.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here.
And Kristen, what was the defining moment or revelation that inspired you to write this book?
Yes, thank you for asking that. My story is really about not the story of my book, the story of me is really about waking up inside a life that I didn't realize I had disappeared into. I had spent 22 years in a marriage that looked peaceful on the outside, but in reality, I had learned never to disagree because small criticisms had chipped away at me for so long. I didn't see the control for what it was until I went through trauma therapy in 2021. And that process really woke up my inner voice. And once I could hear it, I couldn't unhear it. So I spent the next 2 years, just my everything unraveled. My marriage collapsed. I lost my job. My adult stepson and my cat passed away. I left home with only 2 carloads of belongings. It was the hardest stretch of my life, but it was also the beginning of a massive transformation. Through meditation and a lot of inner work, I reconnected with my true self. I was reminded by my true self about a book I had written 25 years ago and followed a series of intuitive steps that led me to build Paramour Paradox, which is the all-encompassing ecosystem that the book is really the foundation for. And I also became a certified divorce coach, which operates under the same principles that um, people don't need to become someone new. They need to excavate what's buried, and they know their inner truth.
Thank you for sharing your story with our audience. And when that moment happened, did it feel like a calling or more like a necessary you could no longer ignore?
It depends on which moment you're referring to. In terms of the marriage, it was a situation where I had so much anxiety whether I thought about leaving or staying. I knew I couldn't stay in the marriage, but I also knew I couldn't leave the marriage. It was a real scary, fearful position of powerlessness. Um, it took every inch of me to crawl off the bathroom floor and get out of the house. And that is not, the literal truth, but that is the essence of what happened um, to escape the control of my marriage. So that really was a moment of I don't know exactly what's wrong, but I can't take it anymore. I'm breaking. In terms of the book, it definitely came as a message from my true self. So I did a lot of work after getting out of my divorce, after understanding the manipulation and control that I had lived under, and actually had tapped into meditation, which is a pretty common way of hearing your inner truth. So tapped into meditation as a way to quiet my brain and hear my inner voice. And from that, I was reminded about the book I had started in 1999, and then everything else unfolded as a calling.
That distinction often reveals the emotional pulse. And also your work is rooted in lived experience rather than theory. How did your own self recovery shape the voice and message of this book?
Excellent question. I was very stuck when I left my marriage, and actually a good part of my life, stuck in the victim story. I had had some pretty serious sexual traumas when I was young, and that had become part of my identity until the trauma therapy. Once that was cleared off my plate, the victim story became about, once I realized it was psychological abuse, my victim story became about the psychological abuse that I was in. So it really was a awakening to that, and stepping back from that and realizing that I had to shift my reality, and part of shifting my reality involved shifting my attachment to my story. Rewriting it, not in the sense of pretending that the traumas didn't happen, because they did, but more reorienting myself around how I want those to impact my life today and my future.
Was there a part of your past that was hardest to write about, yet ultimately the most liberating?
You know, the traumas built on each other. I think the I think probably the hardest realization was the awareness, or the realization that my childhood trauma was used as a means of control in my marriage. I was given the identity that I wasn't safe without my wife. My wife was a retired police officer, and I was reminded that because of her, I was safe because of her ability to keep me safe, and that I wasn't safe if I was on my own. So, really understanding that connection and how my earlier abuse was, taken advantage of, I guess, and turned against me even further. That was probably the hardest realization that I had in my process.
Yes, I think those difficult chapters often become the very pages that resonates most deeply with readers. I genuinely feel there will be like many persons they will resonate with that also, and also guide people from invisibility to authenticity. How does your book help someone recognize the places where they have become invisible in their own life?
I love that question. It ties directly to my whole message. If you go to paramourparadox.com, you're greeted with a video of a chameleon. And the reason is that we all layer ourselves under different colors, different disguises, different masks, um, based on circumstance and environment and situation and relationship. And the longer we continue to layer those one on top of the other, the harder it is for us to hear our voice. It just, our inner truth. It just becomes this whisper that is barely audible, and certainly not a voice you can hear underneath the chaos of all the other voices. Um, I have an exercise that opens up my book called Who Am I? It's actually, I've turned it into a video series, and I'll be gifting that to your listeners. But the Who Am I exercise is a very, very simple, but surprisingly difficult exercise that helps you become aware of all the layers that you've hidden under and that have made you invisible. Like a chameleon blends in. Um, and in order to really allow your colors to sparkle again, you have to peel off all those layers that are buried on top of it. And the Who Am I exercise in my book, I call that chapter foreplay. It's sort of the lubricating of the brain and of the senses to help you start down that path of self-discovery, self-reclamation.
Yes, thank you for sharing this. And uh, what internal resistance do people commonly face when they first attempt to reclaim visibility?
Probably the fear of change, you know? When I went through I went through an intensive, I think it was 5-day, full day process of trauma therapy. It was a type, related to EMDR, but not EMDR. And at the end of the week, um, my therapist told me that over the next 2 years, things are really going to change because you're no longer carrying that load. And I remember this initial feeling of panic. Oh my God, things are going to change. What's going to change? I don't want things to change. Things have to stay the same, and just this sort of fearful moment. And a message that I hear from the people I work with a lot is I can't keep living like this. Um, Something has to change, but I don't want to blow my life up. Um, and I think it is just that knowledge that something's gotta happen, but, oh my god, change is so scary because I don't know what that means. At least here, I know what my situation is. Out there, I have no idea, and I don't there's n no there's every reason in the world to be afraid of change and every reason in the world to embrace it.
True, I truly agree. And I think that resistance is universal, and hearing you articulate it help listeners to feel less alone in their own transitions. And also a program like Paramour Paradox and Destination, True You 2.0, support profound personal reinvention. How do these worlds weave into the narrative of your book?
The book is really the foundation, and the message that I like listeners to get right from the start is I am not the expert. I am not a therapist. I'm not a researcher. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I am somebody who has walked this path. And what I have discovered by walking the path is I can't get answers from anybody else. The only answers lie within me. The hard part is hearing those answers. So I developed questions and exercises, all of which I have done myself, all of which I have tweaked to make better based on my own experience. And those questions and exercises are what I call the excavation. It's the way of uncovering the you beneath all the noise. The the rest of the Paramour Paradox ecosystem, developed, by the way, as messages from my true self during meditation. None of that was like logically conceived. It was all given to me. But the rest of the ecosystem evolved as support for the journey in the book. The thing that I think really makes it not just helpful, but sort of imperative is I've read so many books, designed to help, myself improve in some way, and, I'll get really excited. For example, just a few months ago, I read The Four Agreements, and it was brilliant. I was like, "Oh my god, this is such a great book." And I thought, I'm gonna, live by some of these, agreements. And the next day, I had some kind of conflict with my father. And I thought, okay, I have to live the way that book told me to live. And I couldn't remember what the heck it told me to do. And I think that's, part of the problem. Even somebody like me who swears by, personal development and self awareness, I still forgot the message. I still forgot the tool. And so the ecosystem is really there to um, allow you to have your feet buried in dirt that you have created so that you keep getting reminded of what your path is. The journal, which is I'm writing it now, it hasn't been finished, but the intention of the journal is not to duplicate the exercises and questions in the book. It's a little different process, and it's designed again to help people explore things differently and continue their excavation. The T-shirts, which, seem, not related at first, when I tell you, okay, part of the ecosystem is T-shirts, it's like, what does that have to do with anything? But the philosophy behind the T-shirts is to um, trigger thoughts and support um, in people behind you in line. So all the messages are on the back of the shirt. They all relate to the book and to the process of hearing your true self. Some of them are just like gentle teasers about life, and some of them are support on more of a emotional type of level. And that was part of the process because I want people to kind of wake up in the morning and go, what message resonates with me and what do I want to share with the world? And then the app is a very direct nudge every day, or you get to program how often you want it to work with you, but it has exercises and questions and meditations and sort of a calendar. And it's a little bit gamified to, again, encourage engagement with it. um, you can post your own quotes in it that resonate with you from other books so that you are reminded of things that really matter to you. The course, and that's going to be released within the next couple of weeks. The course has not yet been developed yet, but that's part of the plan. And then the murmuration, which is the community, is also really there for that daily engagement with other individuals who are truth seekers, so that you have support and connection on your path.
That's really fascinating and very creative, like how the creative process often mirrors the healing process, revealing blind spots that we didn't know we had. And also, you are offering generous gifts for listeners, tools that explore identity and self discovery. How do these resources complement the transformation your book aims to spark?
So the gifts that I'm giving, the there's one that is not free. It enters you into like a launch. That one is if you buy the book anytime between now and the end of the year, you'll be entered to win a limited edition Paramour Paradox t-shirt. Um, that T-shirt has the message, "This is your life, make it count," and it has the logo has different colors depending on the run of the shirts, and so this particular run for the limited edition T-shirt is, specific to, this, drawing. The other things that I'm providing are completely free. One of them is the first 5 listeners from this podcast who join my free community, The Murmuration, and introduce themselves will get a signed copy of the book sent to you at absolutely no cost. You just have to mention in the post which podcast brought you in, and I'll reach out for your address. The other offer, and so you asked like how they support in the journey. Again, all of these are links back to the ecosystem, which has um, some ingredient of the support process. The other offer that is free is the Who Am I video series, which I mentioned. It's the exercise that starts the process of peeling off those masks. And there's 4 different versions of it. They are done on a video, 4 videos. Um, so that you can start the process. Once you get access, again, free to the video series or to the community, you also get access to the Me Squared, which is the mind expansion experiences within the same member portal. Those are for, you can call them meditations or experiences or practices or exercises. They're all between 10 and 12 minutes long and help people become aware of the fact that they are living in a reality that is constructed by the filters that are currently in place in their brain. And it's designed to help you experience those filters so that you can pick filters you want instead of the default filters.
That early shift can be the catalyst for an entirely new life trajectory. And I am sure that your guidance makes that transformation feel very attainable. And this is a wonderful conversation with you. And if after this, my listeners want to connect with you, then what's the best way?
So I will provide you with the links, but paramourparadox.com is a great place to start. The email to reach me is at the bottom. It's connect@paramourparadox.com. For the trauma related divorce coaching, that's a different website called Destination True You 2.0. And again, I will provide a link to that website. I'll also give my Facebook and Instagram profiles, although quite honestly, I have just started using them. So they're sparse, but I would love for them to be expanded. So people can certainly reach out to me that way as well.
And I will make sure to attach all these details and links below so that the listeners can find them easily and get in touch with you and know more from you. And you are a wonderful person. Thank you for sharing such an honest, evocative conversation. And to all my listeners, if today's discussion starts something inside you, perhaps a question about who you truly are or a quiet urge to reclaim the parts of yourself you have silenced, follow it. Explore the resources that Kristen offers. Dive into her book and let this be the beginning of your own return to authenticity. Your life expands the moment you choose to live as your true self. Thank you.